Welcome back. You are listening to Nathan Hate on YouTube, iTunes, and Spotify. Be sure to like the video and subscribe to the channel if you have not already. And with that, I'd like to welcome in my co-host, Modern Vintage Gamer.
What's going on, Nate? Great to be here. I know we just had our return episode a few days ago, and we're back as promised with our Game Awards predictions show. So why don't you tell everyone about what we're doing today?
That's right. We're going to give some of our predictions and thoughts around the Game Awards 2024, because whether you care about the awards or the show itself, it always brings at least one or two interesting announcements. And when you look back at the Game Awards of 2023, you had Arcane with a brand new Blade game. You had a new look at Hellblade 2. You had a variety of other meaningful and cool announcements. And that's something that Jeff Keighley is very consistent with. He is able to secure announcements from third-party, indie, and first-party partners that get gamers at least interested to watch the show every year, even though in the minutes immediately following the conclusion of the show, everyone goes to Twitter and says, "Why did I watch that show?" But they return year after year to watch the Game Awards. So it's always fun to give some predictions of what we think may make an appearance at the show and whether or not the show is going to be of interest for ourselves to watch. And I'll say right off the bat before we give our predictions, I am not planning on watching the Game Awards this year. Are you?
No, in fact, Nate, I'll be out of town when it's happening, so it's unlikely I'll get a chance to watch it. I may just catch the cliff notes or just, follow along with what's going on social media and stuff. But I don't think I'm going to be able to sit down and watch it. Plus, even if I was in a situation where, I was at home, I don't know, man. Like, I feel like the Game Awards for me, even though there's definitely some good moments on the show, it just is just so long and drawn out. Like, we're talking about a 3+ hour show here where there is a lot of advertising. There's a lot of things that happen that are not video game related. And look, I'm not here to tell Keighley how he needs to run his show. Obviously, the Game Awards is very successful and it continues just to grow pretty much year in, year out. I think this year is going to be probably bigger than last year as far as engagement and viewership. But for me, Nate, maybe I'm just, I've got my developer, mindset going, but an award show like, the BAFTA Awards or DICE Awards, those things carry more weight as far as I'm concerned over something like the Game Awards, which is more of a spectacle.
Yeah, the Game Awards is definitely more of a commercial product. It has that casual mass appeal, and that's why they have so many ads and advertisers trying to push their Schick Hydrobot and Doritos and Mountain Dew and other general hygiene products on the gaming community. And it just feels very sponsored, very commercial, where it's not about the games themselves being the highlight, at least not from a presenter standpoint. It's just about the marketing dollars. And there are quality announcements to be had here. There's a lot of theatrics and spectacle put on in the show, like last year with the Hellblade 2 mini concert. You had the torches, the flames for the band, and it was a very well done production. But ultimately, it was just kind of a 5-minute sequence that, while interesting and cool to watch, it didn't add anything of value to the show itself. It's not something you go back to and say, whoa, this was really a moment. I think one of the moments that I would say stood out last year from a theatric standpoint is when Sam Lake went on stage and performed Herald of Darkness, a direct reference to the game itself in Alan Wake 2 and that sequence, because that at least pays homage to the game and was a nice way to advertise the game and kind of its wacky silliness factor. And that was one of the highlights for the show last year to me. After having played Alan Wake 2, I want to see that sequence done real time at the Game Awards. And to see that done was something that I can look at and respect. Whereas there's just too much downtime in the show itself. And in years past, I have been on, reaction streams and such. And I just cannot sit there for that 2.5 to 3 hour length and give reactions. It's too long. I think this year I'm doing similar to you. I will check Twitter the day after or maybe later in the night to see some of the trailers of interest. Or maybe I will watch it passively as I'm doing something else, be it watching football, playing a game like Indiana Jones.
Mm-hmm.
And then if something of interest happens to appear on screen in my like periphery vision, I'll pause the game and I'll look over and be like, oh, wow, that game showed up. That looks really cool. And then I'll go back to what I was doing. But I just cannot give it 100% of my undivided attention anymore.
Yeah. Just too long, honestly. In fact, I said last year I actually quite liked the show. And again, I know that I'm just kind of, just screaming into the void at this point. But if Keeley just cut an hour off last year's show, I would have said it was actually above average. It was a pretty compelling show. There were some good announcements, if you recall, that we got.
Mm-hmm.
But I think this year it's just going to be the same. It's probably going to be longer than last year. I would say it's probably going to clock in at about 3.5 hours. There's already some initial announcements of guests that are going to be there. I saw Snoop Dogg is turning up this year. I mean, so I think it's just going to be probably a 3+ hour show like it usually is.
I think if you did away with the pre-show and you just had the main show, it would help a bit with the pacing, especially if you were to watch from the beginning with that pre-show presentation, because there are announcements made during the pre-show. And this year, naturally, you're going to have a lot of the same critiques that we've seen over the years. Not enough time for the awards.
Yep.
Too much random celebrity interference. The Swedish chef from the Muppets going on stage and doing
drunk Al Pacino. Was that last year or the year before?
I think that was the year before.
Was. Yeah. Last year was it Timothée Chalamet last year?
Yes. He presented Game of the Year.
This show just blends the shows just blend into each other. I kind of forget what year things happen, but yeah, you're right. There's always just a lot of spectacle, and I wish there was just more substance to this show, to be honest.
Like you can almost see that glimmer of hope that he's going to learn and make it about substance. But every year when you go in with that hope and expectation of a better show, it just doesn't deliver. And now that we have spent 7 minutes just berating the show we're about to give predictions on, I guess we can move into our predictions, the hype moment of the show for gamers, for new announcements of games of interest from the companies that they love. And we can start with everyone's favorite company, Nintendo.
Well, Nintendo is obviously they've had a very busy year with releases, and we did talk about Nintendo recently on our last episode. So check that out if you haven't heard that yet. I think Nintendo will have something for us at the Game Awards this year. I don't think it'll be anything. Well, let's kind of get the elephant in the room out of the way. There's no Switch 2 at this show. I mean, we already know that, right? But just in case people, still are hanging on to hope that something will be announced with regards to a reveal, it's not going to be at the Game Awards. There is no way. Nintendo is going to manage that. How they manage it. And we've already talked about, what our expectations are there. But what does that mean that could be at this show? Well, it's a good question. I think there is some rumors and rumblings about, the Metroid Prime 2, Metroid Prime 3. And I think something like Metroid Prime 2, Nate, may be a good candidate for a Game Awards reveal. And possibly date. I don't want to say a shadow drop or anything like that, but I'm liking something like Metroid Prime 2 for TGA. I think it's just enough of a little morsel that Nintendo fans can jump on board, just in the same way that Nintendo has been doing it all year for us. I like Metroid Prime 2, not 4, at the Game Awards. What do you think?
I'm in agreement with you on Metroid Prime 2. This feels as though this would be a nice venue just to do that type of small release. It doesn't require a lot of fanfare of any kind. It's just, hey, Metroid Prime 4 is here as a nominee for most anticipated game. So let's give you that nice little appetizer of saying, come early 2025, we're going to give you a chance to play Metroid Prime 2 on the Nintendo Switch as a lead up to Metroid Prime 4's release next year.
Yeah.
The only thing that I could counter with is that an announcement of that tier could easily be held for Twitter or a Nintendo Direct to start 2025 because it's not a significant announcement of any kind. And when you look at Nintendo's presence at the Game Awards, dating back to the start of this generation, while Reggie was still a prominent figure at NOA, Nintendo had a stronger presence at the Game Awards, and it began to wane once Doug Bowser rose and Reggie left the company.
Right.
And that's not to say that Nintendo has completely avoided the Game Awards. It's just been a more minimal presence in recent years. One thing that Nintendo has had at the Game Awards in the last several years is that we see games that they are publishing, but not necessarily the owners of the IP. Games like Marvel Ultimate Alliance, where they publish a third-party game. I could see something maybe in that vein as well appearing for Nintendo here. But otherwise, I think Nintendo will run their typical Switch ads with sizzle reels and stuff of that caliber. Because this year, Nintendo doesn't have a game that requires any meaningful DLC that they could potentially announce at the Game Awards.
Yeah.
So I think they're going to have kind of that advertising sizzle reel and maybe something like Metroid Prime 2. But beyond that, I don't think Nintendo will have a meaningful or big presence at the Game Awards, but just enough that their fans will get maybe a little bit of treat. Just nothing that you're going to really sink your teeth into and walk away fully satisfied, but a nice appetizer into a lead up towards 2025 in terms of maybe a software release or something of that.
Yeah. I think the other thing Nintendo, and they normally do this, there'll be a sizzle reel of their games that they have for the holiday. They always do that. So I would expect something like that. I think the only part that I would counter you on with regards to, I guess the Nintendo's not as relevant at the Game Awards as they once were. I think maybe this year, look, it's painfully obvious to me that Nintendo is still trying to push the Switch as much as they can. They're trying to sell systems. They're trying to sell software. We know that, right? Like we already talked about backward compatibility being announced, really just to ensure that people are still buying software. I think the Game Awards is a good platform to announce another Switch game. And I think Metroid Prime 2 kind of fits in that mold. But look, I'm just speculating, man. I don't know. Like, there's also a really good possibility that nothing happens at all, right? In fact, if you recall last year, I didn't think we got much from Nintendo. But I do think they're going to throw us a little morsel this year at TGA.
Yeah, they're kind of a situation where if they show up with nothing, well, you can't show up with nothing. If you show up with nothing, means you were there. But if Nintendo has no presence, I wouldn't come away shocked or surprised by it. Just as equal, if they show up with a smaller game, I wouldn't be surprised by it. They can definitely go either way. I just go in with lower expectations for Nintendo and, walk away satisfied if they do show up with something that shatters expectation. I want to go to Microsoft because Microsoft has had a very meaningful presence at every Game Award dating back to 2019 when they unveiled Xbox Series. And we've seen titles like Hellblade 2, Perfect Dark,
Fable. Did we see Fable? Yeah, we did.
Was Fable at the Game Awards?
I think the initial reveal was a few years ago.
Teaser trailer.
Yeah.
Like, so they always show up with something. We had Blade last year. So Microsoft has kind of become that company of, what are they going to bring us this year? And if you were to ask me this question a month ago, I probably would have referenced the Sarah Bond statement from earlier this summer, where she referenced hardware and announcements to come for this year. And a few months after that, we did get the announcement about, we had the release of the Xbox Galaxy digital only 2 terabyte Series X. And I have to believe that's not what she was referencing, because why make that a big moment in the June showcase of we have more hardware to discuss if it's just a revision of your current hardware with no power upgrade? It's just we took away your disk drive and we added more memory to it. You don't have to do that type of tease. I think at that point, Microsoft maybe had some intent to announce new hardware, be it a handheld or maybe some next gen initiative at the Game Awards. Right now, I don't think that is on the cards any longer. And I think instead we're just going to see software from them. And when we look at Microsoft's 2025 lineup, there are a few games that need release dates. One of those being South of Midnight.
Mm-hmm.
We've seen some previews very recently. Cook and Becker have a vinyl set that's signed by the development team at Compulsion, but the game lacks a release date. But when Cook and Becker put out their vinyl set for pre-order, they actually modified the page from their original posting. They had said this product would ship by the end of April 2025. Now it says it will ship closer to release date, which is expected to be spring 2025.
Yeah.
So that suggests to me there's a realistic possibility that South of Midnight will get a trailer at the Game Awards, maybe similar to what we had from Hellblade 2 last year. It's just a question of, will they give us a release date? Because if you remember right, Hellblade 2 didn't get a release date at the Game Awards. Microsoft chose to wait until the Xbox Developer Direct in early 2024 to give it a May release date. And maybe they look to repeat that with South of Midnight, but I would love for that game to finally get a concrete release so that people know you have Avowed coming out in February, and then you maybe get South of Midnight in March or April, and you begin to fill out that lineup and you say, okay, this is a nice flow, good pacing here. So I wouldn't be surprised to see a South of Midnight trailer here. Another game that I kind of feel Microsoft will give us an update on comes from Obsidian. It's not Avowed. I'm referencing The Outer Worlds 2.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, that's a good pick. I mean, we definitely want some updates on that. We obviously know about the game. I think TGA is a good venue for a game like Outer Worlds 2. So, yeah, I like that. I think that fits for me. I just thought about this, Nate. I have a game that Phil Spencer recently came back from a trip to England and said that the game was playable. And that game is Everwild. How are you feeling about Everwild at the Game Awards? You think it's time that they show us some more of this game?
Everwild has been absent for so long. I don't know if you can show up to the Game Awards with a trailer of Everwild and generate hype. I think Everwild is that type of game that when it resurfaces, you need to have developer interviews immediately following the trailer so they can talk about what we have just seen, why it's taken so long.
What if the Rare logo flashes on the screen and then they just cut into the game with no context? So the people that remember Everwild, they're like, oh, this is the Everwild game. But it's really more it's more of they're basically starting over in terms of their marketing, right? And they're just showing off this game for the first time almost as a brand new thing. You think that would work? Or do you think that there's just too much baggage here that just doesn't make sense?
I think there's too much baggage there. And it's just, I don't know what expectations fans have for Everwild at this point. When you go missing for such a long period of time, what type of expectation do you have for this game? And could you realistically deliver on it with just a quick trailer at something like the Game Awards?
Yeah.
Like, you'd really have to surprise people. Now, you did bring up Rare, and I think we will see a Rare logo appear at the Game Awards, but I think it's going to be with brand new content for Sea of Thieves.
Oh, yeah. Yeah, I think you're right. I mean, Sea of Thieves, with the PlayStation 5 version out there and everything, that's definitely something that a platform like the Game Awards really fits nicely for. So I could see that.
Now, I want to bring up Avowed because I did talk about the Outer Worlds 2 from Obsidian. With Avowed dated for February, we just had some hands-on previews. Do you think the game shows up at the Game Awards with another trailer, or do you think you're kind of pushing into overkill? You're kind of repeating Deathloop type of marketing where you just see it too much and they're better off not showing it at the Game Awards, holding it close to chest, coming up, at the developer direct early next year, just to give us a quick look, or, a final launch trailer in late January? Or do you think you show up to the Game Awards maybe with just a quick trailer, flash that release date one more time, but nothing too heavy? I think you want to have that focus elsewhere with other announcements for Microsoft.
Right. Man, that's a good question. I'm going to lean towards probably not. But it's Microsoft. Sometimes they make some decisions where, it doesn't necessarily mean it's the right thing to do. Like there was already a preview event for Avowed just recently, I believe, right, where people actually got hands-on time with it.
Yes.
And it's hard to say. I'm going to lean towards no on that. What do you say? Do you think there's a chance? I don't feel like it's going to happen with Avowed.
I think if anything, it's just a very brief trailer.
Yeah.
I think if I were Microsoft, I would put my attention elsewhere. I know some would say, well, that's bad marketing. Right now, when Avowed is coming out. That's the most important part. It's coming out in February. The game was already supposed to be out. It was supposed to come out last month before they delayed it due to strategical reasons. So now, when you're planning a Game Awards type of presence, that may have been before you finalized that date for Avowed, and you were still expecting it to come out in November or in 2024. So you're looking at other things to showcase. So you come with The Outer Worlds 2. You come with South of Midnight. And then you also have to entertain just the slim possibility of, does Bethesda show up to the Game Awards with one of their games? Like, we know Doom Dark Ages is coming out in 2025. I personally don't think that would have a presence at the Game Awards. I think that's something Microsoft would hold for the Xbox Developer Direct or the June showcase, depending on the release window for the game. But there's also been the long rumored Oblivion remake. And where is that going to fall? When is that going to be announced? Do you think that game could potentially be announced at the Game Awards?
Yeah, I do, actually. I think a game like Oblivion, which is obviously a remake or a remaster, not really sure what it is yet. But yeah, we have heard about rumors of Oblivion coming back in some capacity. And if it is either a remake or a remaster, I don't really feel like it fits the developer direct branding, where it's really more of a focus on new games that are being developed or new IPs, new games in a already known or established franchise. This is a little different. This is I don't want to downplay it or anything like that, but this is basically there's a team that's working on a port or a remaster of this game. So unless there's something really compelling to show us in a developer direct, I think that it probably doesn't fit that brand, that mold. So I like Oblivion for this, Nate. I think that's a pretty good pick. I think there may be a chance.
My only hesitation with having Oblivion at the Game Awards is that it's very similar to Avowed.
It is.
In genre and look. You don't want to create any confusion amongst people, and you don't want to make Avowed already look bad by having an Elder Scrolls game be announced before Avowed comes out.
That's true.
But maybe Microsoft doesn't view them as direct competitors, that there is plenty of space in the gaming world for both of these games to exist, peacefully coexisting. But I would love to see Oblivion finally get revealed and announced so we can see the improvements that have been made to the game. The game originally came out on the 360 back in early 2006, so it's quite aged. You can play it on backwards compatibility on your Series X with some enhancements, but it still looks like an early 2000s game. So I want to see these visual upgrades. I want to see if they can convince me to play Oblivion, because I tried it back in 2006 on my 360. I just could not get into that game. I couldn't get into Elder Scrolls game until Skyrim, but maybe this fresh new look at Oblivion will be that opportunity. But overall, I think Microsoft's presence is definitely going to be less than what we have seen in years past. But if you can give me a new look at South of Midnight, you can give me a release date for South of Midnight, and you give me a new trailer for The Outer Worlds 2, I think I would walk away as an Xbox fan fairly happy with that representation.
Yeah, and this is the obvious, but there'll be like some type of Call of Duty trailer on there as well, because there's always one.
Right. I think just this past week, or it might have even been over the last couple of days, I think Season 1 Reloaded for Warzone launch for Black Ops 6. So you probably get a hype trailer for that. Maybe there's Santa Claus is going to appear in Warzone again with his demonic train from hell, and you have to hit the reindeers and try to kill Santa on the train.
Yep.
So maybe we'll get a look at something like that. But yeah, I'm definitely in agreement with you there. And maybe we get some sort of Game Pass announcement or drop of another Activision game being added to Game Pass. We just recently had Crash Nitro Kart be added to Game Pass. We had the Spyro games. So maybe something along those lines, smaller, but something that will generate some talk amongst the Xbox community. Now, I'm going to go over to Sony, because Sony and the Game Awards hasn't exactly been a pair made in heaven. Sony's very similar to Nintendo, that they may have a presence in a respective year where you get maybe one announcement, maybe you get two. They did have the God of War Ragnarok DLC, I believe last year, where you got to go through a series of trials in free DLC.
Yep.
And given that Sony's release lineup this year was a little slower compared to 2023, it's interesting as to, predict and gauge what could Sony show up with at the Game Awards. And I'm going to start off with a big prediction. I think Neil Druckmann is brought on stage and they announce the brand new Naughty Dog game.
Yeah, it's a good venue for it. I mean, normally I would disagree with you and say this is 1000% going to be a showcase or a state of play type of thing. But I mean, we've seen Druckmann at the Game Awards before. Last of Us has been at the Game Awards, featured a lot. Yeah, look, I think it's a good venue for it. Having a couple of million people watching a new Naughty Dog announcement for a new game. It tracks for me, Nate. I like it. I think you're right. I like this. Yeah, I think Druckmann will probably show up and have a presence there.
I mean, we do have the season 2 of The Last of Us airing on HBO coming in 2025.
Yep.
So you have, Druckmann can come out, or whomever from Naughty Dog, for that representation. Say, here's a new trailer at season 2 of The Last of Us coming to HBO. Oh, and before I go, here's the first look at what we've been working on at Naughty Dog.
Yeah.
And we see a brand new IP and people get excited. You don't have to give it a year or anything, because this is going to be a game we probably don't see again for a long time. Well, but it feels as though this is a good time.
Remember last year, Kojima came out and was showing off what he was working on and announced his new stuff. So maybe you're right. I think Druckmann shows up this year and teases everyone with his new game. I like it.
I mean, I'd love to see what Naughty Dog is up to, because Naughty Dog is a quality studio. And especially if they're going towards a new IP and they're moving away from The Last of Us and Uncharted, it's like, okay, what are they going to do this time? How are they going to surprise us with a new idea or concept that could change gaming? Like, what are they going to have in store for us? And that's what makes me excited, is that prospect of possibility of what could Naughty Dog do this time.
Right.
So I'm just ready to see what Naughty Dog is up to. And Druckmann has done interviews very recently saying they've been working on their new game since, I believe he said 2020 or 2021.
Yep.
So it's been a number of years. And I think everybody is ready to see what Naughty Dog has in development for the PlayStation 5.
Yeah.
We've existed in the world of The Last of Us for long enough. It's time for something new.
I agree. And I think, it's definitely a good platform to announce the new game that they're working on and basically let people know that, hey, this isn't something that we started building on the PS4 or anything like that. This is a true next generation Naughty Dog PlayStation 5 game that takes advantage of all the hardware rendering features. Maybe it's pro enhanced as well. I think that's a really good pick. And having millions of people watching, I think it makes a lot of sense. So I'm gonna agree with you on that one. I like Druckmann for the Game Awards.
I mean, maybe we finally get a PC release date for The Last of Us Part 2. I don't believe that has one yet.
No, it doesn't, but that is on the cards. And look, Sony usually will announce some PC port at the Game Awards. So that's also a good pick as well, where they just basically just date the new game.
Now, like otherwise, when I'm thinking of what Sony has already announced that we need updates on, like Wolverine or the Venom expansion standalone to Spider-Man 2, both from Insomniac, I don't really envision Insomniac having a presence at the Game Awards. I also don't see Sucker Punch showing up with Ghost of Yotai. We just saw the game a few months ago with its debut trailer.
Yep.
And the other studios from, under Sony's umbrella, Guerrilla just put out the Horizon Zero Dawn remaster at the end of October. You just had Lego Horizon come out as well in November. So I don't think Guerrilla is ready to showcase their next project.
Yeah.
I don't know if Corey and Sony Santa Monica are necessarily ready to show their project. I also don't think Sony would show up, with Naughty Dog and Sony Santa Monica's new projects. I think one would be held for a state of play or a showcase, whatever branding Sony wants to use for their first show of 2025.
Yep.
So what else do you think Sony could potentially show up at the Game Awards with?
Well, I do agree with you about Insomniac games like Wolverine and all that. This doesn't really fit, doesn't really make sense to me. I don't know. I mean, do we see Jade Raymond's game show up at this? Fair games. I mean,
I don't think that game fits the venue of the Game Awards well. I think that's like a state of play.
Yeah.
You have to show that's the type of game, as you were saying with Everwild, you just have to transition right into the gameplay.
Right.
And then you have a developer interview saying, with Fair Games, we're doing do with the team-based shooter and convince people we've kind of revolutionized, or we're trying to redefine that genre.
Yeah.
You have to showcase why this is changing the heist genre for the better.
Yep. Yeah, I like that. I mean, it's something that needs a little bit more of a deep dive. I agree with you. Ooh, well, Nate, I don't really know what else Sony can show us. So I'm just going to throw this out there. And this is more of a hopes and dreams thing, but I think Parappa the Rapper is making a comeback at the Game Awards.
Why Parappa the Rapper?
I don't know. It just came to my head. I like it. Sony, they're on this big 30th anniversary thing right now. They're digging into the archives. Maybe this is one of those things that they've dug into.
See, I like how you brought up the 30th anniversary, and then you mentioned digging into the archives, because a product came out this year that dug into the archives, is also celebrating the 30 years of PlayStation. And it's up for a number of awards at the Game Awards this year. And that's Astrobot.
Oh, yeah, that's a good pick. Astrobot DLC.
Yeah, I wouldn't be surprised to see some Astrobot DLC, not time trials, but something more meaningful, a little more meat on it, actual new worlds, levels to go through. I think that has a possibility of being at the Game Awards with an announcement.
Astrobot DLC is an exceptional pick, and it really just fits the mold of the Game Awards, where the game obviously was very successful. It's, it could even win Game of the Year, right? Because it's definitely in the running. Astrobot DLC, mark it down. It's close to a lock, as I could say, which is probably about 80% for me at this time.
I think it just fits the general tone of the show, as you said.
Yeah.
And it would just get people interested, especially if they could slap a release date on it. If they could come out and say, Astrobot, brand new levels and stages coming February or March 2025. It also sparks interest in holiday sales. We'd be like, oh, if I buy the game now, I'm also getting free DLC next year.
Yeah.
Let's go. This is a perfect family pickup game. It also won awards. I'm definitely buying this for my son or myself this Christmas or my daughter.
Yeah.
And, let's go. We get a nice surge of interest. So, I like that type of announcement from Sony because otherwise, beyond those, I can't think of anything else Sony could show up with, but I'm always hopeful for a surprise.
Like it.
Now we're going to go to some of the third parties who always have a surprise in store. And I want to start with Atlas because it feels as though every year Atlas does have representation, be it at the Game Awards or Summer Games Fest. Jeff Keighley knows how to court Atlas to make an announcement. We've had Metaphor show up at other shows. We've always seemed to have Persona have some sort of, presence at a Game Awards or the Summer Games Fest. Mm-hmm. And this year, I think we're going to see a repeat. I think Atlas will be here. I don't think we see Persona 6, but maybe we see a Persona spinoff of some kind get announced during the show.
Yeah, I agree with you. I'm trying to think if there's anything that maybe that could kind of sneak in, but I agree with you. I doubt it. I don't think this is the year.
Now, I want to go to Capcom because Capcom is kind of one of those companies as well that Jeff Keighley is able to court. And be it Game Awards or Summer Games Fest, Capcom has new announcements to make, be it smaller games like Kunitsugami, Path of the Goddess, or something bigger like Monster Hunter. Capcom always has a presence at these shows. And Monster Hunter Wild is coming out early next year.
Mm-hmm.
You had Dragon's Dogma 2 come out earlier this year. And I mean, what do you think we could potentially see from Capcom here? Do you think we just get a new trailer from Monster Hunter Wild? Do you think we maybe get some DLC or expansion content for Dragon's Dogma? Does Resident Evil show up, or does Capcom surprise us with something totally unexpected?
Definitely the trailer for Monster Hunter Wilds. I think, the timing is right. The momentum is right for something like that. I would say no to Resident Evil. Yeah, Resident Evil for me is one of those Capcom events. I'm not sure what they call them, but you know what I mean, the ones that they normally have. Or that would be potentially something that we would see it at E3 season next year. I don't think the Game Awards is Resident Evil focused in any way. Monster Hunter Wilds is a good pick. You got me on the spot here. I can't really think of anything else. Dragon's Dogma 2. I mean, that game has kind of come and gone. I don't know how exciting or hype a DLC would be for that game. Someone in the comments I know is going to roast me because they're the biggest Dragon's Dogma fan and they're probably dying for it. But I don't know, Nate. Can I say a sequel to Ghouls and Ghosts Resurrection? Can I do that?
You can say that.
Okay.
As unlikely as it is, you can say it. And it pains me to say that because I love that game.
That I'm just going to basically just add things that I want to see.
Hey, there's nothing wrong with that. I for so long wished and hoped that LRG would have gotten the physical copy of Ghost and Goblins Resurrection.
You know what? I hope that
I would have bought that. I would have bought that.
Wasn't to be, unfortunately.
No, I've heard the game sold terribly.
Yeah.
Unfortunately. And it's because of the art style. Everyone looked at it like, this looks terrible. But once you played it, it worked.
Yeah.
It was really nice to look at. It was smooth. It's one of my favorite games. But, I'm going to come up with something that maybe is equally as obscure and unlikely as a Ghost and Goblins Resurrection sequel.
Go on.
And this also had an HD re-release to gauge interest. It served as a barometer for the franchise. It also was named in the Capcom leak with a variety of other projects. I'm referencing Onimusha.
Ooh. That is a game that I haven't really given much thought to in a while. I know we got a port to the Switch many years ago. Onimusha, that would be hype. That would be a hype announcement.
There's so much you could do with that franchise on current hardware where you take that dark atmosphere of the original game where you're fighting, demons and such.
Yeah.
and you just really expand upon it. You amplify it.
Mm-hmm.
You could do so much with that genre now that I would love to see Onimusha come back, on these platforms. So I'm just going to will that into existence.
I love it.
A new Onimusha game.
I absolutely love it.
Now, I want to go to FromSoft, because they always seem as though they have a presence to some capacity at the Game Awards. We had Armored Core one year. We've had Elden Ring. That feels as though it was the better part of half a decade.
Yep.
Shadow of the Erdtree is nominated for Game of the Year, which is a lot of controversy. Do you think we see anything from FromSoft this year?
I do, actually. I do, because FromSoft always seems to show up at these Game Awards. They've been there pretty much every year, and they've had a lot of success. They won Game of the Year with Sekiro. They won Game of the Year with Elden Ring. Armored Core got a presence as well. But what that would entail, I don't know. I think I don't think it's the right venue to announce their new game, whatever that may be, whatever they're working on. But Shadow of the Erdtree was and is a very very talked about game this year. Elden Ring is still very popular, and it's still very much in the minds of people, and it could very well walk away with a Game of the Year trophy. So I think we haven't heard the last of Elden Ring, Nate. I think maybe there's a little bit more to come. Any thoughts on that?
Yeah, I think there is more to come for Elden Ring. I don't think it would be something as expansive as Shadow of the Erdtree. I think it would be a smaller DLC. And I think said DLC will be at the Game Awards.
Yeah.
I think we will get something new related to Elden Ring here that we will be able to download, not immediately following the show. I think it would be something that comes out sometime in 2025, but it would be something that will gain interest. It would be something that would be cool. It's going to be something very FromSoft.
Yep.
And it's going to gain, just the Elden Ring fans' interest, maybe spark a little new interest, and people will go out and buy the game to give it a look. But I do think we will see something new related to Elden Ring at the Game Awards, because the game sold just far too many copies to be ignored.
Yeah.
And FromSoft does like to add content to their games, unless you're Bloodborne. That was just one and done.
Well, they don't. They have no say in that, unfortunately. As much as they would like to, I'm sure. But yeah, I do like additional DLC for Elden Ring.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, something. Yeah, that's what I'm expecting. Just additional DLC.
Yep.
Be at a new game mode, something like that.
Boss rush. Who knows what it is? It's probably not boss rush. Let's be honest. It doesn't really fit that mold, but it's something. Something else, something more,
something that would get us back into it.
Yes.
After having completed Shadow of the Erdtree. Just to keep us invested in our Elden Ring character and save file for an additional 100 hours, because devoting half our life to the game just wasn't enough for FromSoft. They need more.
That's true.
Now I want to go to Sega, because Sega had a huge presence at the Game Awards last year, where they essentially had a Sega Renaissance, where they announced Crazy Taxi, a brand new Shinobi game, Jet Set Radio.
Yeah.
Jet Grind Radio, whichever one you want to refer to it as. And everyone kind of sat there like, whoa, Sega is suddenly remembering their roots. They're remembering the franchises that made them successful outside of Sonic. Do you think they're going to come this year with something similar to that, where they say, you know what? Here's another announcement in that similar vein to what we did last year, but not with the games we already announced, something different.
Well, I think they've probably, closing in on getting one of those games ready for 2025, and potentially we'll see a dedicated, trailer for whatever that game is. And I know that there was some, there was some leaks, I think, of, was it Crazy Taxi? There was some screenshots, or was it Jet Set Radio? One of those games, we saw some leaked kind of screenshots of the development of that game, which I think weren't, I think later on we found out they weren't particularly recent. I think they may be like from a year ago or something, but that's beside the point. I do think that Sega's going to show up with something, and there's going to be more in that quartet of those. I think that they call them super games. I don't remember what the word was for them, but one of those games is going to have a longer appearance at the Game Awards. Now, as far as anything outside of that, that's tough. Look, one thing that I'm going to throw out there is Virtual Fighter seems like it's got a bit of momentum right now. And I am curious whether Sega does have something to show us regarding Virtual Fighter that's not VF5. Maybe there is something new on the horizon for Virtual Fighter.
I like Virtual Fighter as a prediction. It was actually a prediction I did last year for Sega, and naturally it didn't happen. We got every other franchise Sega's ever worked on.
I mean, yeah, I think your mindset was in the right place as far as Sega is definitely looking into their back catalog and pulling out beloved IPs and franchises, and they're slowly starting to focus on them again.
Yeah, I mean, that's the thing. If they can bring back Virtual Fighter in 2025, 2026, whenever the game releases, I'm going to be interested in how they're able to really revolutionize and evolve the franchise. Because when you look at games like Tekken 8, Mortal Kombat, they've evolved over the last several years with their new iterations. They're not the same games that we played back on the PS1 or early PlayStation 2 generations. Because during the HD transitionary years, a lot of these fighting games suffered. They became, I don't want to say they became expensive because the pricing didn't change. But people no longer felt as though they were justified spending $60 on a fighting game. The arcade modes were no longer enough content to sustain. And people started to look elsewhere saying, do I really want to buy this fighting game? And that's why we haven't seen a Soul Calibur game since Soul Calibur 5.
Mm-hmm.
We haven't seen Virtual Fighter in, I believe, over 10 years.
Right.
And they did do that like little free release on PS4, I believe it was.
Yes.
But we haven't had a new Virtual Fighter in about a decade.
Oh, forever. Yeah.
We haven't had truly a new Dead or Alive game.
Right.
In many years, they did a free-to-play type model. So fighting games right now are kind of on that upswing.
There's definitely been a resurgence of fighting games over the last few years. Tekken 8 obviously was very, very, very good and very successful. Street Fighter 6 is doing very good. MK1 is a big game as well. Things have definitely turned around for fighting games. Remember, wasn't even like, how long ago was Jump Force nominated for an award?
Oh, God.
Was that like 2020? 4 years ago?
About 4 years ago.
It wasn't really that long ago when we were trying to pad these award categories with games that didn't really make any sense. I think now fighting games have really seen a resurgence.
Yeah, I mean, Street Fighter 6 has done numbers.
Yep.
You also have other fighting games like Guilty Gear.
That's right. Yeah.
Which have done exceptionally well.
Yeah.
From Arc Systems. So I would love to see a new Virtual Fighter game and just to see how Sega is able to evolve it and take it to the next level, because it was a beloved franchise. It was kind of the fighting game for a while. And in a way, it gave way to Shenmue.
Absolutely. Yeah.
And Shenmue is now just a relic of the past, unfortunately. But yeah, Virtual Fighter, I would love to see from Sega here. Maybe we see something, something related to Sonic. It's always hard to, what else does, Sega have in their back pocket? Be it a Sonic game, Super Monkey Ball, something just obscure. But, Sega's always good for a surprise. And that's going to pivot me to Square Enix. Square Enix usually has some sort of presence at a Jeff Keighley production. Last year, we had Final Fantasy 16 with the DLC. For the title, we had a shadow drop immediately following the Game Awards presentation with the Omega Pack. And then a few months later in spring, we also had the secondary DLC drop for Final Fantasy 16 with Leviathan. On the topic of Final Fantasy 16, I do not think the Xbox version will be announced at the Game Awards. I think that would be something that will be announced sometime in early 2025 and probably have an immediate release following said announcement. But I think Square Enix is presence at the Game Awards will bring us the PC announcement for Final Fantasy VII Rebirth.
Yeah.
Beyond that, though, I'm not expecting much from Square Enix this year.
Yeah. I'm in agreement with you on that one. We'll get the PC version details on that, on Rebirth. And, hopefully they can get more interest and more sales, in that game, which, it didn't do terribly, but it didn't do great. Obviously, it went below expectations. As far as anything else from Square, I mean, they have a lot of development studios that work on their games. There's the smaller games. But I don't know. I think other than Rebirth PC, I'm not seeing much for Square at this Game Awards this year. I think they're holding their cards for next year.
Yeah, like I don't think we're going to see the Final Fantasy IX remake be announced at the Game Awards. I don't think we would see Final Fantasy Tactics remaster announced at the Game Awards. I think those are something that a console manufacturer would try to secure for one of their presentations, be it a direct, a state of play, a developer direct, something more along those lines. Else, beyond that, I can't think of anything else from Square Enix that would be here. I think it's far too soon for a look at Dragon Quest XII. Naturally, we're not going to get a look at Final Fantasy VII Part 3 at this point in time.
Can I just say Parasite Eve?
You can say Parasite Eve.
Right. Parasite Eve.
By Forever Entertainment.
So just a remake. Just a remaster.
Yeah, that
all right.
Somehow worse than the PS1 version.
Oh, that reminds me. Going back to Nintendo real quick.
Ooh.
Donkey Kong trailer. This game's coming out in January. They're going to show us something. Come on.
Maybe. I mean, I feel like that's a waste of time, but maybe.
I mean, we're talking about the Game Awards here. Half of the show was a waste of time.
Valid point. I love how I just bring up Forever Entertainment. You're like, oh shit, Donkey Kong. Now, I want to bring up a company who's been in the headlines for the last couple of weeks, and I'm kind of wondering why they're on a press tour. It's CD Projekt Red. Their CEO has been talking about the new Witcher game, and they've put out some teaser images and such, and I don't understand why he's walking around in late November, early December of 2024 talking about The Witcher 4, unless they're going to announce The Witcher 4 at the Game Awards.
They're going to announce The Witcher 4 at the Game Awards, is my prediction.
Yeah, you should add that at the end.
Yes.
That was a very definitive statement.
Yeah, I'm not getting in trouble for Banjo. People listening, I'm not going through that again. I think there will be a Witcher 4 reveal at the Game Awards. I don't know what it would entail, but I think you're right. CD Projekt Red has been kind of on that tour, that press tour right now. They're starting to talk, and it just feels like we're going to see something. It's been a while. I mean, Cyberpunk, obviously, they had the good ending with that game. It obviously has been a long time.
Did you see the sales figures for that game?
I did not.
I think the last sales figures they just put out a week or so ago, 30 million copies.
Wow. That's incredible. Incredible. That's an amazing comeback, really. Amazing turnaround for a game that, I mean, man, you remember when that game launched, it was a disaster.
It was completely broken. They sold their 10 million copies in the first 48 hours or something. They had returns on Steam. They took the game off PSN. People were returning their physical copies to retailers, and they said, stay with us. We're going to fix this game. Yeah. And a few years later, there were over 30 million copies sold. They did the huge expansion. What was it, last year or the year before?
Yep.
And people said, okay, this game is fantastic. I've tried to go back to it. The game still doesn't click with me. There's something about the design that I just cannot get to enjoy.
Yeah.
But for those who have fallen in love with it, I know a lot of people have said this is their favorite game of all time, or one of their favorite games of all time. Hats off to you. I'm glad you found a game you enjoyed. And that's, CD Projekt Red put in the time and effort to do right by their fans. Because the one thing we had said back when that game launched in such an abysmal state was that CD Projekt Red had to earn back the faith of the consumer base.
Absolutely.
And that's exactly what they have done. And I will still proceed with caution, be it a new Witcher game, anything that comes from them. I'm not going to get hyped just based on the first trailer. I'm not going to get hyped on the curated gameplay that they put out. I'm going to wait and let them prove to me that they can deliver a quality product on day one before I give them that benefit again.
Absolutely.
They still have to prove it to me. They're trending in the right direction, but they haven't earned all my faith back yet.
I'm with you. I feel exactly the same way. I got burnt on Cyberpunk. I bought it for $40 PS4 version, which was an absolute disaster. And remember, they pulled the version off their store, and they were offering refunds. It left a really bad taste in my mouth. I have gone back a few times. I'm kind of with you. It just doesn't really click with me. I may give it another go before The Witcher 4 comes out. But yeah, look, I think The Witcher 4 is a good prediction to make. It's time to see what, CD Projekt Red is cooking for what's next. So yes, I like it.
I'm going to bring them up, even though I believe there's a 0% chance of anything happening with this company. Rockstar Games. Do you think Rockstar shows up with anything, be it Max Payne 1 and 2 remake that they are doing with Remedy, Grand Theft Auto 6, anything from Rockstar? I personally don't see Rockstar showing up here. I don't think Rockstar feels as though they need Jeff Keighley to promote any of their products. If anything, I would see Rockstar dropping a trailer of their own game the morning of the Game Awards just to look at Jeff, say, haha, we don't need you.
Yeah. I could see them dropping one at the same time personally, or right before the show's about to start.
Yeah, I don't see like Rockstar having any presence at this show, but have to bring them up. Also have to bring up Ubisoft. They do have Assassin's Creed Shadows coming out early next year. I feel as though Ubisoft really wants this year just to end and forget everything that's going on with the company right now.
No doubt.
And kind of put the year to bed. Say the holidays are coming up. Everyone go on your vacations.
Yep.
We'll come back next year and hope for a better year.
Yeah, I agree. I think they're just going to lick their wounds this year. It's been a very tough year for them. I was thinking about maybe some DLC drop for like Star Wars Outlaws or something like that. But you're right. I think Ubisoft they're just going to quietly close out the year and hopefully rebuild, regroup, and come back bigger and better next year. We'll see, because Ubisoft is in a lot of trouble right now.
Konami. Do you think Konami could have a presence here? We know the long-standing issues Jeff Keighley has had with Konami due to Kojima and everything that unfolded there. Konami really never had a reason to have a presence at the Game Awards in recent years until this year, because Silent Hill 2 Remake is phenomenal.
Yep.
And we have Metal Gear Solid Delta needing a release date. Do you think Konami and Kojima were able to sit down, come to peace with each other, and maybe Konami say, we'll give you the release date trailer of Metal Gear Delta?
So, no, I don't. However, this is how I think it's going to work. I do think that Metal Gear Delta will have a presence at the Game Awards, but the way that I feel like it's going to work is it will be announced at the pre-show. So Keighley will not be personally the one that talks about it, but it will have a presence. I think Konami, they probably want to spend the marketing dollars on this, Metal Gear Delta, having a trailer, having a release date, basically putting in the minds of people for next year that, hey, we've got a big game coming out. We had Silent Hill 2. People loved it. So yeah, Metal Gear Delta trailer plus release date at the pre-show. So Sidney Goodman's going to be the one probably announcing it, not Keighley. What do you think of that?
I like that. Kind of like a passive aggressive. Right? You can be at my show, but I don't want to deal with you.
We're slowly mending bridges here, but we're not there yet.
See, why did you have to say the word bridges? Because the game you just gave me, Death Stranding. Yes. We know Kojima's there. Jeff Keighley put out the tweet that
Yes.
Kojima will be presenting an award. He'll be in attendance. We saw Death Stranding not that long ago when Kojima decided to highlight the in-game picture mode where he had a few of the characters. I don't know, they were taking pictures in the game. I think it was at Tokyo Game Show.
Mm-hmm.
Do you think we get a new trailer for it here, or do you think that's something Sony probably holds for the first state of play or showcase in 2025 and then give us an actual release date for the game next year to come out on?
I think it's going to be held for a Sony state of play / showcase for next year. I think they want to basically kind of drive the marketing around that. I think Kojima, I mean, he'll have a presence this year, but I don't really expect much. I mean, if you recall last year, Nate, he was on stage for a while showing off the new...
really nothing.
Yeah, I mean, he showed off nothing, but he was on stage for a long time kind of showing off whatever next project he was working on.
Yeah, that was OD.
Yeah.
The game that he's collaborating with various Hollywood directors like Jordan Peele. It's a Microsoft game that's going to use cloud streaming in some capacity. We still really don't know anything about that game. I don't think this is the venue to showcase it again.
No. Keighley may ask him, what's going on, and and he may just give a nothing update. But I don't expect Kojima having a big presence this year. He had he had a lot of stage time last year. I think this is not the year.
Agreed.
Yeah.
Now I'm going to go to the indie. Well, no, still stay with the third parties really quick. Also think there's going to have a lot of Chinese and Korean representation.
Mm-hmm.
We're going to see, Black Myth Wukong. I believe they promised that they would have some expansion or DLC content that they wanted to announce.
Yep.
Late this year. And we still have to learn about the Xbox release date for that particular product. Phil Spencer said not too long ago that, or at least he implied he knows when the game can come to Xbox, which kind of says to me, why not announce it? If you can announce it at the Game Awards, go for it. Maybe we see a repeat with what happened with Baldur's Gate 3.
Yeah.
And it's a shadow drop at the Game Awards, but ideally the company remembers to announce it. Unlike Larian, who was rushed off stage following winning Game of the Year when they didn't have time to announce.
That's right.
That Baldur's Gate 3 is now available on Xbox. Stellar Blade PC needs a release date. I wouldn't be too surprised if we saw that be announced here.
Yeah, I could see that. That's a good pick. And or maybe some DLC announcement. Stellar Blade was obviously a very successful game, did very, very well. So let's maybe kind of agree on something Stellar Blade will happen this at the Game Awards. Probably PC though. You're probably right.
And maybe we get a release date for Wukong. Mm-hmm. We saw that not too long ago. It's coming to Game Pass. It's also coming to PlayStation 5. Looks very good, but I wouldn't be too surprised to see that game again. But I do expect a lot of Chinese and Korean representation during the Game Awards. And I actually want to go back to Sony just for a quick second because I just remembered this. There were rumors going around not too long ago about a God of War Greek Saga collection, which essentially would be 1, 2, and 3 and the PSP games all coming to PlayStation 5. I mean, I don't know if that exists. If it does and it looks good, I would definitely be interested in it. This kind of feels like that venue where you would announce a game like that because it's not that big of a deal.
Since we're putting things out into the universe, I would absolutely kill to have something like that, a collection like that of those games in a nice little bundle.
But what type of visual upgrades would you want? Would you just want the PS2 games to be PS2 games HD'd like we already had on the PS3? Yeah. Or do you want them to go a little further?
Maybe a little further, but I don't know. But like it would be really cool if we just got the entire set of all the games before 2018 and Ragnarok, that is, in one nice little bundle.
Yeah, so it'd be God of War 1, 2, 3, Ascension.
Yep, the PSP games,
Shadow, and Chains of Olympus.
Yeah, that would be pretty good.
I mean, it'd definitely be a nice little collection of God of War games, and I mean, I would hope if the collection is real that they can release it because I would have interest in it. But I mean, we'll find out. Well, it's time to don the clown makeup. You know what game I have to bring up? It's actually going to be the only indie game we bring up by name.
Silksong.
Team Cherry's Silksong.
All right, Nate.
Is it finally time for the silk to be woven into an actual product with a release date and a trailer and all that good stuff?
I think it's time to don the clown makeup again because there is no Silksong presence at the Game Awards, just like there never was. And I don't even know if this game is real or if it exists. That's where I'm at with Silksong. That's where I'm at.
Out of all the time you go back to Australia for vacations, you've never thought about getting on the road and paying Team Cherry a visit saying, hey guys, I know it's all of about 3 of you making the game, but what the hell's going on?
Well, I mean, if I did that, obviously I wouldn't be able to say anything, but man, I don't know. I don't know what's going on down there with Team Cherry. But if you guys are listening and you need me to send you some Victoria Bitter or some Vegemite or something Australian, even though you live in Australia and that doesn't make any sense at all, because you can probably just get it in your local grocery store. Let me know how I can help get this game out there. But no, to be serious, Nate, I don't think so. I don't think Silksong is going to be at the Game Awards. It's just easy to say no and expect disappointment, so you don't feel you don't feel like you missed out on anything. So
I mean, I will say, I don't know how many people will remember, but going back to earlier this year, it was a very real expectation that Silksong was going to be a figure in the Xbox June showcase. Jason Schreier had put in his newsletter that he was predicting and expecting that Silksong would be at that showcase. Only after arriving in LA for Summer Games Fest did he put out an update saying, yeah, never mind, I don't expect that to happen anymore. So at one point, Microsoft did think this was going to be one of their big Game Pass releases in 2024.
Yeah.
Now, June came and went without a mention of Silksong. We are now in December, and there still hasn't been any mention of Silksong this calendar year. My hang up with the Game Awards and Silksong is this. If Microsoft wanted to have it in the June showcase, it means they still view it as a priority to their brand and their service. So if you're going to have a developer direct early next year, if I'm Microsoft, I'm probably still courting Team Cherry to be part of that versus having them be part of the Game Awards.
Agree. I think if Silksong does show up, it's going to be in that format versus the Game Awards.
Now, I mean, that's not to say Microsoft didn't work with them, say, let's get you at the Game Awards, because we're going to throw on that Game Pass Day 1 logo at the end of that trailer. Whenever the game comes out, if it's a shadow drop next week or if it's coming out sometime in 2025, Microsoft is still going to have play Day 1 on Game Pass at the end of the trailer or at the start of the trailer. So Silksong, sing your song whenever you're ready. I mean, it's people played the game 5 years ago, and that's the last time anyone's played it.
Yeah.
We've seen it a couple times since then, but if you're at the Game Awards, awesome. If you're not, I don't think anyone's going to be disappointed. All you can do is surprise people by being there. So choose the surprise.
Yeah, exactly.
That's really it. And I mean, on that will conclude our Game Award predictions. Definitely have a lot of wild stuff in our predictions. I think ultimately, it's very grounded, nothing too radical. You may be able to understand why we're not going to watch the show, though I have to admit, as we went through some of these predictions, some of them kind of got me interested in maybe tuning in to see if they do happen, because if we do have a show where, let's say, The Witcher 4 or Virtua Fighter or Onimusha make an appearance, that's kind of hype.
Yeah, it's pretty good. Pretty good. I mean, like I said, last year was good too. I really enjoyed last year. I can't sit there and sit there for 3.5 hours. That's my biggest hang up.
Well, that's the thing. I can't sit there for 3 hours to really only have 15 minutes of trailers of interest.
Exactly.
So, I mean, let us know your thoughts and predictions in the comment section below. Do you agree with any of our predictions? Do you think Nintendo, Sony, and Microsoft will show bigger than what we are anticipating? Do you think there'll be a third-party surprise? Let us know in the comment section below. And with that, I'd like to thank MVG for joining me as always.
Thanks for having me on, Nate. It's always a pleasure. I have one quick question before we wrap, and that is, what do you think the game of the year will be this year at the Game Awards? I'm going to say, this is controversial, I'm going to say Astrobot's going to get it.
Okay. I'm honestly thinking it's going to be Shadow of the Erdtree.
Yeah. Yeah. I mean, I love Shadow of the Erdtree, as you know. Played and finished it. Incredible. And I'm not saying it's not going to win because it's DLC and it doesn't deserve to be there. I do think it does deserve to be there, but I think Astrobot's probably just going to take it.
Like, I think Astrobot would be my close second.
Yep.
Like, those are definitely 1 and 2 for me. I don't think Rebirth has really any chance of winning, nor do I think it should win.
No, I agree.
I don't think Black Myth Wukong will win.
Nope.
I think it really comes down to Shadow of the Erdtree and Astrobot. So if either of those two win, I'm not walking away surprised. I think I'd walk away saying, hey, they earned it.
Yeah.
I mean, all the games that got nominated earn it. There was definitely a few nominations in other categories that made me kind of wince, say, how did you get there? But overall, if Erdtree or Astrobot win, bravo. All
right, Nate, get us out of here.
Until next time, continue to embrace the hate.
With Nate and MVG, dissecting all the lies. Nate the hate, rocking hard, MVG, dropping knowledge bombs. This podcast sitting strong, guiding us where we belong. Through the pixels and the codes, breaking down what future holds. Nate and MVG, showing us the gaming gold.